Hey guys, so glad to see you here. Those of you who were with me for the Rule 29 mini episode, welcome back and welcome to episode 11. We are cooking with gas and grease and all sorts of things, grits, chitlins, and everything, honey. Well, maybe not chitlins, I don't like chitlins, but bacon and eggs and all that kind of stuff, honey. And grits, and I like sugar with my grits, by the way. Okay, don't judge me, y'all. Um, Today, this is the recap. This is day 28 of the Diddy trial. This is day 28 of Diddy trial. We learned some interesting things today. We concluded with excuse me, let me rephrase. The government concluded their initial run with their last witness. This is their initial run with their last witness. And I say initial run because the defense is going to go through cross tomorrow, and presumably there could be a little bit of recross from the government, and then they will officially and formally rest on tomorrow. Then the defense will start their case, but before they start their case, or somewhere in the middle of resting on their case and closing, prepping for closings, the defense is going to enter a motion for Rule 29. I did an entire mini episode on Rule 29 if you want to know what that is. It's a motion for a judgment of acquittal. Please go over to the Rule 29 video to get the scammy on what Rule 29 is. And then, should Rule 29 be denied, then Judge Submarinian and crew will start prepping the jury and everyone for closings. We're getting down to the wire on this thing, guys. So let's talk about today. Today, we continued from our Friday conversation with Homeland Security Investigation Agent Sergio. I believe that's how you say it. My apologies if I'm saying it incorrectly. Basically, Sergio is, like with all the summation witnesses, this agent is here to show the money transfers, okay? The money transfers for the escorts, the money transfers for the SEX encounters, the money transfers for Jane. And one of the transfers for Jane, the money transfers for Jane, were $15K at a time. Now, I don't think I want to go line through line like I did with the last recap, because it was a little lengthy, and it was lengthy because I was trying to catch you all up and get you up to speed on what had happened in the past. I'm not, this was my first time doing a recap on my channel, so I want to make sure that you guys were up to speed. But essentially, the conversation with the summation testimony was very much with the agent, doing a little role playing as Combs, because they were reading through the text messages. So it was the summation agent, or the agent, role playing as Combs, while the prosecutor was role playing as Jane in some instances, and in other instances the prosecutor was playing as Miss Christina Kikorum, and the agent was playing as Combs. And really what the prosecution was really showing, or attempting to show, was this idea that this is an entire enterprise, that it is by no accident that all of these people were working together to make these freak off nights happen, that everyone was in on this, that everyone understood that their job was to make sure that Mr. Combs had Astroglide, that Mr. Combs had baby oil, that Mr. Combs had MDMA, that Mr. Combs had Tusi, that Mr. Combs had any manner of liquor, ketamine lollipops, all of these items, that these items were utilized for the freak off encounters that he was having, that also that every employee that was involved in this particular process was also fully aware that they were contacting escorts, that they were contacting um, uh, hotels and utilizing, excuse the background noise, guys. There's ice cream trucks coming down my street. I'm in my office, and so I have my window open so I can get the best quality of internet I can from my modem, and the ice cream truck is coming down the street. So that's what you heard right there. But that that everybody that was involved, all of these assistants, were colluding together to make sure that people had the hotels. They had hotels set up for Jane. They had hotels set up for Combs. They had hotels set up for the escorts. That the escorts were being contacted by the assistants. The escorts were being travel plans were being made for the escorts by the assistants. These are the ingredients that you would need, that one would need to prove up a criminal enterprise. These are the components for the RICO. So this is the government just hammering in the RICO. They are laying it out. These summation witnesses, they are very important. They are the witnesses that sort of lay this entire thing out for the jury. They, again, I think I mentioned this in the last episode, they are the ones that ensure the jury that, hey, these are things that really happen. These aren't made up in our head. These aren't things that we're just saying happen. We have the proof. We have the receipts. We have the text messages. We have the literal receipts. We have the hotel receipts. We have emails. We have voicemails. They played a number of voicemails. I'm going to talk about that as I go through the transcript. Again, I'm not going to read the entire transcript, but I'm going to read through key portions of the transcript so you all can see and sort of hear the kind of proof that the government is laying out for to land their plane here. Now, one thing is really important to understand is that a lot of the case, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the legal world and how these things work, a lot of the case will not be probably proven up and laid out for the jury in terms of the jury feeling like, yes, I got it, until the closing. The closing, if I may use a track and field reference, the closing is the anchor runner, okay? They are if you're in a 4x4 women's, men's relay team, and your anchor runner is your strongest runner, the closing is the anchor runner. This is where you show your stuff. This is where you lay it all out. This is where you lay it all out on the line. Sometimes trials are won, whether it be for the defense or for the government. Trials are won with closings. If you talk to some juries after they've, submitted their verdict, and you talk to them afterwards, if you talk to some of the juries, they'll tell you, the closings got me. The closing got me. When I heard that closing, or when such and such and so, gave that closing, that was it for me. It's all in the way that they connect with that jury during the closing. You have to remember, the jury is sort of like in a land, they're there, obviously, but as it relates to the lawyers, the jury is sort of like in a land far away over on the other side of the room. Not far away, but somewhat. Because they're spectators. They're spectators. They're not really involved. So the lawyers aren't speaking to the jury until the opening, and then they speak to them in the closing. The closing is really important for a number of reasons, which are obvious, but it's also really important because this is when the attorneys get to address the jurors after weeks of presenting all of these cases to them. all of this evidence to them. And now they're connecting with them one-on-one. Now, it's been weeks since we heard from Cassie. So now the government gets to reconnect with the jury and remind them of Cassie's testimony. Remind them of that video. I have a prediction that they're going to replay that video in the closing. And they likely will. Because they need to remind the jury of the layout. They need to remind the jury of the force, of the coercion, of the fraud, of the Kid Cudi arson, of the Capricorn kidnapping, of all these things that they have made part of that big baby that they're calling the RICO. So they're going to replay all of that. The bribery. They're going to replay some of that, the voice, those voicemails that they have that involve the bribery as it relates to that Cassie video. So the closings are very important. Now the defense. The defense, as I keep trying to tell everyone, they don't have to put on any witnesses because the burden of proof is not on them. Their job is to create doubt. Their job is to poke holes in every single shred of evidence that the government puts forth. And sometimes the defense doesn't get to that until the closing. And it's the grand opening, grand closing sort of thing. So there's a lot to be said on both sides for people who are like, well, I haven't heard anything from the defense. Well, number one, they haven't had an opportunity to present their case. That's number one. And number two, even if they do not present any witnesses, when it comes to the closing is when they can really start to poke holes. Well, have we seen any evidence here? What about this? What about that? Well, they have this person, but we don't see this and we don't see that. That is the defense's job, essentially. Now, I want to go back to sort of like what I was saying yesterday about who's going to testify. It's all very ambiguous. Well, it's still ambiguous today, but we're hearing that it could be a situation where the defense is not going to have any witnesses. Which, as I said, they don't have to. And it's not uncommon in sex trafficking or sex trials for people not to have witnesses. I was on a trial. The person was acquitted, actually. I was on a trial in Colorado. An NFL ball player, played for the Denver Broncos. And we had physical evidence of this particular alleged assault. He was acquitted, so I can't even say it was, because it was alleged. The man is innocent. So we had physical evidence. There was an actual fetus, because there was a child that was created out of this alleged assault. And I remember very distinctly that the defense put on no witnesses. Not one witness. Not one shred of evidence. And a lot of their cross was really just poking holes. Doubt. It doesn't need to be a huge chasm of doubt. It doesn't need to be some, as the Judge Submaranian comment was, it doesn't need to be some big Perry Mason moment. It really doesn't. It just has to be enough doubt to say, this does not pass the smell test of beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what it says. And really, sex cases, SA sex assault and trafficking and all those kinds of cases are very hard to prove, because consensual, and we're dealing with this now with this particular case, consensual versus force, coercion, etc., is always a case of he said, she said, and then based on other layers. And this is the reason why the government is working overtime with all of the witnesses, especially the summation witnesses, and the receipts that they have, because they want to make sure that the jury understands this is not a case of he said, she said, or a case of I changed my mind, or whatever it might be. Even though I changed my mind, it's still not a consensual thing. But it's much more than that. This is much more than just your everyday essay case. This is a network, is what they're saying. This is an enterprise. This person utilized his legitimate business as a means to commit crimes, whether it was bribery, whether it was arson, whether it was kidnapping, whether it was sex trafficking, whether it was drug trafficking, whether it was all those things, assaults, hanging people over balconies, whatever it might be. He utilized his business to cover up those crimes, to commit those crimes, to have people help him, those who were employed through his legitimate business, have those people help him with those crimes. So that's what the government is saying. And this has all of the earmarkings of a racketeering case because of all of the cases of immunity that is going on. Almost all of the government witnesses, because they were in Combs's enterprise, all of them had to have immunity. And that is the telltale sign of a case being a racketeering case. That people have to ask for, people have to have immunity in order to get on the stand. So let's go through a couple of these transcribed notes here that I think are important for you guys to sort of see here. Let me get down. There's quite a few, and I only want to cherry pick a few so you can see what was being said today. Oh goodness, my sliding skills here aren't good. Let's see. Let's get down here. So, okay. I think this one is interesting because this is Jane and Combs having a conversation on an audio. So they played a lot of audio. And I also wanted to say, too, that the jury watched about 40 minutes of sexual explicit material, video material. They watched about 40 minutes of freak off material. Combs, Jane, and with varying people. I'm told that Combs at times looked at the jury to see what their reactions would be. So that's very interesting to note. So let's just start here. What does Jane send to Mr. Combs? Now, this is the government speaking to Agent Citarello, who is the Homeland Security Investigations. And he is saying to her, he's answering, what does Jane send to Mr. Combs, like the text message. And she says, I'm heading there. We'll let you know when I'm 5 minutes away. Paul is coming up. Paul, if you recall, is another escort. He is also, he actually starts his career with the with the Combs Enterprises as Combs's personal trainer. And then somehow he turns into an escort. So this is another sort of, situation where we see Combs's opportunistic, sort of habits of utilizing employees to do other things other than what they've been hired for. So he says she's asking him to walk us through line 337. They're looking at transcripts as well, but they're looking at the transcripts of the text messaging that they've been, looking at this whole time. So he says the London Hotel in LA, room 229, in the name of Chavez with Jamage, and this is after Freak Off. Line 340, and he says check-in record for the London Hotel. Now the London Hotel, and I'll see if I can upload the photos for you guys, is the hotel where they said there have been a number of damages to the furniture. I looked at one of the receipts that the government made available to public discovery to the press, and it was literally $48,000. I said, oh my goodness, that is a car or a home payment, a down payment for a house or something. Like, this is, ridiculous. This is a year of tuition at someone's college. Like, this is crazy. So she asked, play the voice message, and this is Sean Combs saying the following. Should I book the room? It's a yes or no answer. Thumbs up or down. What does Jane respond? I need to shop to celebrate, is what Jane says. Who texts Jane? Kokorum. So this is Christina Kokorum. This is Sean Combs' right hand, asking for Jane's account. So he says this is Kokorum asking for Jane's account information. She says Bank of America and an account number. She writes, I want to send one of the guys here to drop everything off. Or do you want to send one of the guys here to drop everything off? And Combs says, what? She asked. No, I don't want them to know. So he didn't want the security. He said the guys are security. He didn't want the guys to know. Play Combs' audio message to Jane. This is Combs' voice saying the following. I sent you 15,000, baby girl. What does Combs text to Paul Arthur, who is the escort? He says, are you in LA? Paul responds, yes. I'ma hit you later. Now play Combs' voice. You want to meet up at 9:45. And he says, can you get $5,000 for Fahim? What does Combs text to Jane? Paul gonna meet us at 9:30. Play Combs to Frank Rodriguez. And this is Combs' voice to Frank. Frank, make sure that room is set up right. So again, this is proving up that Combs is involving all of his employees in this sex trafficking freak off situation. And I should add that before this, he and Jane have a conversation about the fact that she is tired of doing this. And I want to find that because I think it's very important to play here, or here it is. So Jane says, I'm not coming to New York. I feel disrespected. You just want me for a hotel binge. Then she writes, I don't want to be used and locked in a room to fulfill your fantasies. Sean Combs says, that was podcast talk. And then Jane says, I don't want to feel obligated to perform these nights for you for fear of losing the roof over my head. And then the government asks Sargarello, how does Mr. Combs respond? And then he writes, girl, stop. Then some audio messages are sent. Then they do the audio message. And then eventually she gets down to, I believe, just basically asking for money. She says, you need to make sure I feel taken care of. We get into the financial records, and I thought this was especially funny because people call have called Sean Combs, especially on like blogger sites or the gossip sites. They call him the Diddler. Well, apparently his Venmo account name is Diddler. That's his that's his Venmo account name. So he's been listening to you all, or he's been reading all of your messages, your comments on the gossip blogs. And they just go through a bevy of messages hammering in how everyone is a part of this. So he says, this is Combs' voice, I need 5 more bottles of each so I don't have to ask anybody. So at one point he asked for Cialis, which is a male enhancement for those who have impotence. He asked for more baby oil, and that's what he's referring to. He's asking for his phone. He's asking for Apple TV. He's asking for many different things. And then he asked security, I need $5,000. And essentially the $5,000 is for the Paul guy who is the escort. And it's because of his participation in the escort. And then he tells his staff. He's talking to Christina Kokorum, and he's giving a note to everybody. These are voice notes that everybody, and remember, Brendan on last week let us know that they all share in a document. So they all can see these notes, and they all can presumably hear the voice notes as well. And anything else y'all think I might need. And Cialis. I am going to keep calling y'all unless you think of everything I'm going to need. What is texted to Fahim? Taking $5,000 to him now. What does Jessica Ruiz text to Sean Combs? Had to change drivers. Then Jane texted to another escort. So they had like 2 escorts that night. Paul Arthur, who is also known as Arthur Fitness on Venmo. And then this Cabral Williams guy, who's the escort from Atlanta. What are the next 4 videos? Explicit videos. About 45 minutes later. Then JP Morgan to Arthur Fitness, Paul, $1,000. And then we have a note here saying, as these messages are read, Sean Combs is sitting in court, sitting back in his chair. He's just listening. So we've had several little, messages. Well, what is he doing? How is he reacting? He seems not to be reacting too much. So I think, that's pretty much the summary today. They just laid it all out. The fact that this is an enterprise, the jury watched 40 minutes of freak off videos. A lot of people were uncomfortable. I'm hearing that Sean Combs was looking over to see how people were reacting. They, obviously the Rule 29 issue, you can go over to my other episode, my mini episode that I just put up to, have a full understanding of what Rule 29 is. But basically they're going to ask the trial court for a motion of acquittal under the Rule 29 tomorrow after the government rests officially. Today they showed money transfers for the escorts, SEX encounters, money transfers for SEX encounters, money transfers for Jane, how everyone was interconnected, all of his escorts and employees and security, how everyone knew about what was going on, how everyone participated in it, all for his enjoyment, all for his just feeling good, for his happiness, right? So the government rested informally today, but they will rest formally tomorrow. This agent is their last witness, and then presumably tomorrow the defense will bring in their witness. They may have 1, they may have 2, they may have none. They may have just submit exhibits. I'm also hearing that people are like still waiting to see if Diddy is going to testify, and I think that's actually a plausible thing. I think that he is very much in charge of his legal team, as much as they are up there doing what they have to do, fighting on his behalf. It's everything short of him getting up there and defending himself. I mean, you could sort of like, hear and from the other people who are actually in the courtroom, hear how he really wants to get up. So I wouldn't be surprised if he testified, but based upon the timeline and the calendar that the Diddy defense has submitted, I don't see a world in which that he testifies, because there's no way that Sean Combs gets up there and he's only up there for one day. That's not going to happen. So we're going to see. We're all going to see together. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens and coming to you tomorrow with another recap. Please let me know if you have any questions or you want me to cover something. I'm happy to do that. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Court is adjourned officially.